Courage to stay steady means choosing to remain grounded and faithful to the path we know is right, even when uncertainty clouds the horizon and every step feels like walking into the unknown, because the truth is that the right path rarely comes with guarantees. It does not offer the comfort of certainty or the ease of shortcuts. Instead, it demands that we lean into courage, that we trust ourselves enough to keep moving forward even when the outcome cannot be seen. And courage in this sense is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to keep walking alongside it, to steady ourselves when the ground beneath us feels shaky, to breathe deeply when doubt shouts louder than hope, and to anchor our choices in conviction rather than in convenience. For comfort lures us toward what is easy, predictable, and safe, while courage calls us into the deeper work of growth, which often feels uncomfortable and even frightening, yet it is only in that space of discomfort that transformation takes root, and to stay steady on the right path means we accept that progress will not always be visible, that there will be seasons where our efforts feel unnoticed, where we wonder if the struggle is worth it. But courage whispers that every step, no matter how small, is a declaration of resilience, a refusal to be swayed by fear or fatigue. And this steadiness does not mean stubbornness. It means holding our ground with flexibility, adapting to what comes without abandoning what matters. It means being willing to stand tall when storms rage, to bend when winds push hard, but never to break from our core values. And the courage to stay steady is built in the moments when turning back looks tempting, when giving up feels easier, when silence would cost less than speaking up. Yet in choosing to remain, to hold steady, we prove to ourselves that our faith in the path is stronger than the discomfort of the present moment. And while comfort promises us rest now, courage promises us strength later, the kind of strength that comes only from enduring, from continuing, from trusting that the hard road shapes us into people who are not just achievers but survivors, not just dreamers but doers. And when we embody this courage, we begin to see that uncertainty is not an enemy to avoid but a teacher to embrace, because it is in uncertainty that we discover how deeply we can trust ourselves, how resilient we can be, and how much we are capable of when we refuse to abandon the path we know is right. And so the courage to stay steady becomes less about dramatic acts of bravery and more about the daily, quiet decision to keep moving one step at a time, to keep believing in unseen outcome, to keep trusting that the right path, though difficult, is leading somewhere worth going. And with each step, courage reshapes us, reminding us that comfort may soothe for a moment, but only courage can steady us for a lifetime. Lessons and detours remind us that even when we wander away from the path we hope to stay on, every wrong turn has the potential to shape us in ways that ultimately strengthen our journey, because life is not a straight road with perfect signposts guiding us at every step. It is a winding landscape filled with unexpected turns, obstacles, and moments where we realize we have strayed into places we never intended to go. And while our first instinct may be to label those experiences as mistakes, failures, or wasted time, in truth they are opportunities to learn what we could not have learned by staying perfectly on course. For it is in the discomfort of being lost that we discover new resilience, in the frustration of retracing steps that we learn patience, and in the humility of admitting we have gone astray that we cultivate honesty with ourselves. And every detour hath something to reveal, perhaps about the fragility of our plans, perhaps about the blind spots in our character, perhaps about the strength we carry but had not yet called upon. And when we are willing to see these wrong turns as teachers instead of punishments, they become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks, because the lessons they offer prepare us to walk the right path with deeper awareness and greater strength than before. And though detours often feel like setbacks, they can be places where unexpected wisdom grows, where we gain perspective that will serve us later. Because sometimes what feels like lost time is actually the very preparation we need for challenges ahead. And sometimes the side roads expose us to people, experiences, or truths that end up being essential to who we become. And though we may not recognize the value of these lessons in the moment, when we Finally return to the right way, we carry them with us, adding weight to our steps and clarity to our direction. And these detours also teach us humility, reminding us that we are not infallible, that even with the best intentions we can wander off course, but humility is not weakness. It is strength, for it allows us to admit missteps and realign without shame. And in doing so, we build the muscle of resilience, the ability to keep moving forward even when progress feels messy or uncertain. And while the right path may test our endurance, the detours test our adaptability, showing us that life is not about staying perfectly straight, but about having the courage to find our way back when we drift. And over time, we come to realize that detours do not erase the possibility of reaching our destination. They enrich it, because the person who arrives after being tested, challenged, and stretched is not the same as the person who set out in the beginning, and often the very strength, compassion, or clarity we need to walk steadily comes not from avoiding detours, but from surviving them, learning from them, and allowing them to shape us. And so each wrong turn becomes part of the larger story of our growth, proof that even in the places we did not want to go, there was something to gain, and when we finally find ourselves back on the right path, we walk it not with arrogance but with gratitude, not with fear of making another mistake, but with trust in our ability to learn and to rise again, because the journey is not about perfection. It is about becoming, and the detours, however painful, are often the chapters that teach us who we truly are and what we are capable of carrying forward. Clarity over shortcuts is the quiet discipline of choosing what may be harder now, but will serve us better in the long run. And while the allure of shortcuts is undeniable because they whisper promises of speed, ease, and immediate comfort, they almost always leave us with a sense of incompleteness, a hollowness that reminds us that we skipped something essential. For the right path, however winding or steep, gives us a direction that lasts, one that doesn't just end with reaching a destination, but transforms the traveler along the way, and clarity is the lens through which we see not just where we are going, but why we are going there. It prevents us from getting lost in the noise of quick fixes or temporary reliefs, and instead anchors us in purpose, reminding us that true progress is not about rushing, but about moving with intention, because when we chase shortcuts, we may arrive sooner, but we often discover that what we rushed toward wasn't what we needed at all, and then we are left starting over, retracing steps, searching for meaning in places where meaning was never planted. But the path of clarity, though demanding, teaches us patience, endurance, and faith in ourselves. It builds a resilience that shortcuts will never give, because we learn how to withstand discomfort, how to navigate uncertainty, and how to stay grounded even when the journey feels long. And clarity gives us courage to say no to distractions that glitter but fade quickly. Courage to choose alignment over applause, courage to embrace the slow burn of growth rather than the flash of instant results, because clarity is not only about vision, it is about integrity, about holding ourselves to the kind of standard that says what I am building will stand the test of time. Even if it takes longer than I want, and the right path is rarely glamorous in the beginning, often it looks like sacrifice, like effort without recognition, like faith without proof. But over time, it creates a foundation so steady that no quick fix could ever replace it. And when we commit to this clarity, our steps become lighter even when the road is hard, because there is peace in knowing that each choice is leading somewhere meaningful, somewhere honest. And while the temptation of shortcuts will always be there, pulling us toward the easier, faster, seemingly more rewarding option, clarity reminds us that what we truly want is not the rush of temporary relief, but the strength of lasting direction. For every stone we place on the right path, every effort we make with intention, every moment we choose what aligns with our deepest values over what merely feels convenient, we are building not only a way forward, but also a version of ourselves that can withstand storms, that can look back without regret, and that can walk forward with pride, because clarity shapes character, it molds our resilience, and it reminds us that the right path, though difficult, is never wasted. For it gives us not just arrival but transformation, not just success but substance, not just relief but roots. And when the journey feels heavy, it is clarity that whispers, "Keep going, this is worth it." And in that whisper lies the strength to continue, to trust, and to know that the harder way is often the truer way. Integrity as a compass means allowing our deepest values to guide the direction of our lives, even in moments where no one else will ever know the choice we made. And that is where its true power lies, because integrity is not about performing goodness in front of an audience, but about living in alignment with who we say we are when the lights are off and the doors are closed. It is the quiet courage of doing what is right when it would be easier to compromise, to cut corners, or to bend truth for comfort or advantage. And though those small compromises may seem harmless in the moment, over time they erode trust, not just the trust of others, but the trust we hold within ourselves. Because when we repeatedly act out of alignment with our values, we begin to doubt our own word. And there is nothing heavier to carry than the weight of knowing we betrayed ourselves. But integrity acts as a compass, always pulling us back to true north, reminding us of who we want to be, reminding us that peace is found not in approval or applause, but in congruence, in the steady match between our values and our actions. And though the path of integrity is rarely the easiest, it is always the one that builds strength from the inside out, because when we walk with integrity, we do not need to fear being found out or exposed. There is no double life to manage, no story to keep straight, no mask to hold in place. We move freely knowing that the outside world may shift, but our center remains firm, and integrity does not mean perfection. It means accountability, the willingness to acknowledge when we fall short and then to realign quickly, to admit mistakes, to make amends, and to keep walking in the direction that reflects our true values. And when we consistently choose integrity, even in small and unseen ways, we develop a kind of quiet confidence that cannot be faked, because it comes from the lived experience of knowing we can trust ourselves, that we are dependable, that our words carry weight, and this confidence ripples outward, strengthening relationships. Because people sense they can trust someone whose actions match their words, and trust is the invisible currency that sustains every connection worth having. But perhaps the most important gift integrity offers is the ability to live with peace, because there is a freedom in not having to hide, a calm in knowing that even when the world doesn't reward us for doing what is right, we can still rest in the assurance that we honored our values, and over time, that becomes a foundation that no external success or failure can shake. For circumstances will change, recognition will fade. Opportunities will come and go, but integrity is the steady ground we stand on, the compass that keeps us from drifting into regret or shame. And though the road it points to is sometimes lonely, it is also the road that leads us to wholeness, because in the end we do not measure the worth of our lives by how quickly we advanced or how loudly we were praised, but by how honestly we lived, how faithfully we held to our principles, and how consistently we chose the right thing even when no one else was watching. Resilience in the long run is about understanding that the right path is never just about the visible milestones we reach or the achievements we gather along the way, but about the endurance and character that are forged within us as we continue to walk it. Because while accomplishments may be celebrated and remembered for a time, it is the deeper strength built in the process of pursuing them that sustains us when applause fades and recognition is gone. And the right path, though often harder, is precisely what shapes this resilience, demanding that we show up consistently, even when progress feels invisible, even when setbacks tempt us to abandon the journey, and even when the weight of uncertainty feels heavier than the hope that keeps us going. And resilience is not something that suddenly appears in moments of crisis. It is cultivated slowly through every choice to stay steady, every decision to get back up after falling, every act of patience when the road stretches longer than we imagined. And this resilience teaches us that we are capable of more than we once believed, that our strength is not measured by how little we suffer, but by how deeply we endure. And endurance itself becomes a teacher, showing us that true growth does not happen in bursts of excitement, but in the quiet repetition of effort, in the unseen hours of persistence, in the willingness to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and character is born in that same space because challenges along the right path test our values, asking whether we will compromise for comfort or hold firm to integrity, whether we will choose bitterness when faced with hardship or lean into the courage of hope, and each choice shapes who we are becoming, so that when the external symbols of success are stripped away, what remains is a person who has been tempered like steel, strong not because the road was easy but because it was endured, and resilience in the long run also changes how we see setbacks, because we begin to recognize that obstacles are not signs to stop, but opportunities to grow stronger, to refine our direction, and to learn patience. And this kind of strength cannot be rushed. It cannot be gained through shortcuts. It can only be earned through the steady practice of walking the harder way. And though we may not see immediate results, the resilience we build is like roots deep in the ground, invisible yet powerful, holding us steady in storms and nourishing us when surface achievements fail to satisfy. And in the long run, this resilience becomes the quiet foundation of confidence, not the loud confidence of ego, but the grounded confidence of someone who has endured, who has been tested, who knows that no matter what comes they can rise again. And this is why the right path matters, because it is not only about where we arrive, but about who we become along the way. And resilience ensures that when the journey stretches far beyond what we expected, when the victories are fewer and farther between, when the challenges seem endless, we are still able to continue to endure and to hold steady, because we are not only chasing achievements, we are cultivating character, and it is that character, more than any trophy or recognition, that will carry us through the long run and sustain us in the face of whatever lies ahead. Wholeness in the journey means recognizing that the right path is not measured only by where it takes us, but by who we become as we walk it. Because too often we are taught to focus solely on the destination, to measure our worth by outcomes, achievements, or the visible markers of success. Yet, the truth is that the deepest fulfillment comes not from what we collect at the end, but from the transformation that happens within us as we move along the way. And the right path, though rarely easy, gives us the chance to grow into the fullness of who we are meant to be, shaping our character, deepening our values, and revealing strengths we never knew we carried. And this wholeness is not about perfection, but about integration, about learning to bring all parts of ourselves, the strong and the fragile, the certain and the uncertain, the victories and the failures, into alignment as we keep walking. And when we view the journey through this lens, the challenges we face become more than obstacles. They become essential elements of growth, teaching us patience when things do not unfold on our timeline, teaching us resilience when setbacks threaten to break our spirit, teaching us humility when we realize we cannot control everything, and teaching us courage when we are called to keep moving without guarantees. And in each of these moments, we are not just enduring but becoming, not just surviving but shaping ourselves into people who are whole, grounded, and authentic. While it is natural to desire a destination, to want to arrive at a place where the struggle feels justified and the reward tangible, the deeper truth is that if we ignore the becoming along the way, the destination will always feel hollow, because the journey itself is what prepares us to hold the destination with gratitude instead of entitlement, with wisdom instead of arrogance, and with peace instead of restlessness. And wholeness also means learning to honor the small steps, to value progress even when it is invisible, to embrace the fact that growth often happens in the quiet, unseen moments when no one else is watching, because it is in those spaces where our integrity is tested and our true selves are revealed. And the right path calls us to live with this awareness, to understand that our worth is not postponed until we arrive, but is being shaped and revealed with every step. And this shift allows us to see our detours not as wasted time, but as experiences that enrich our becoming. It allows us to see struggles not as punishments, but as invitations to deepen our strength. And it allows us to see even moments of waiting as necessary pauses that prepare us for what comes next. And in this way, the right path creates wholeness because it weaves together all the fragments of our story, not discarding the broken pieces, but integrating them into something meaningful. And this integration is what allows us to stand firm when life tests us, because we are not defined by one success or one failure, but by the entire journey, by the way we have carried ourselves, by the lessons we have embraced, and by the love and courage we have chosen along the way. And as we continue walking, we come to understand that wholeness is not a single moment of arrival, but a continual process of becoming, a lifelong unfolding in which each step, each challenge, and each triumph shapes us further into the person we were created to be. And when we live with this awareness, we stop rushing past the journey in desperate pursuit of the end. Instead, we begin to walk with gratitude, with openness, and with trust, knowing that every moment is part of the becoming, every step is part of the shaping, and every mile along the right path is carrying us closer not only to where we are going, but to who we are meant to be. And it is in this becoming that we find wholeness, because we realize that the right path was never only about the destination at all.